guys, welcome back to the Kind of an Expert podcast, the only podcast where the guest picks the topic of every single episode. My name is Corey Tyndall, and as always, I am your host. And this week, I sat down with New York City comedian Sally Ann Hall to talk about horror movies. We get into all things horror, from the different types of horror movies, the what is considered a horror movie versus like a thriller, and all the writing that goes into a horror movie. It's tough to write things that are horrible, that give people this sense of fear, but also kind of toe the line in today's sensitive way of looking at media and art. So anyway, even if you're not big into horror, I think you're going to really like this episode. You can follow Sally Ann at Sally Ann Hall on Instagram, and check out her podcast, which is at the link in her bio. As always, follow me at Corey T Comedy on all social media. And if you're in New York City, come to Ope, a comedy show every single week at Ferns. Sally Ann is on the show on August 3rd. So definitely come to that if you enjoyed this episode. And let's get into it. Cheers. Thank you for doing it.
Thanks for having me.
You're an Airbnb host. I want to talk about that for like a quick second. That has to be a nightmare. Like, I stay in Airbnbs. I'm very, like, I try to be very courteous. I'm from the Midwest.
Do you stay in like Airbnbs where the person's renting out a room, or do you rent out an entire place?
The entire place most of the time.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is, like, when I read the rules, it's like, what happened to you? Like, what happened to you to make you write all of these rules?
They get insane where they're like, like if you see a dog, don't feed it.
Yes,
just like, and you're like,
yeah.
Okay.
Right. So it's like, or even like, yeah, just you must take out the trash. You have to do the laundry. You have to do, and I was like, so that's super high maintenance. But is it because people left it trashed before?
I honestly think some of it is. I think there's a huge difference between renting out an entire place and then renting like a room in someone's home, because the room in someone's home is always just like a person trying to pay their rent.
Right.
Whereas if it's an entire place, a lot of times it's like a management company or someone who has multiple properties, and they do this a lot. So they don't want to pay for labor, is that.
Fair.
I like, some people are like, okay, $70 cleaning fee, and then they ask you to do all that shit. And yes. I'm like, no.
Try $200 cleaning fee. Like out in the mountains near ski hills and stuff. It's insane.
That's so stupid. Yeah, I do a $25 cleaning fee,
Way
or something.
Too much. What are you, a landlord? Like, Jesus.
I clean it myself,
Pure
so
evil.
I'm paying for my own labor. Right. Well, so I will say, I don't like strangers coming in and out of my house, but most of the time they are like you. They're on their best behavior. They don't want to get a bad review either.
Right.
They're usually like shy, or sometimes they're really talkative. I've done it for like 8 years.
Wow.
And I used to have a 3-bedroom when I lived alone, and I rented out 2 of those rooms on Airbnb.
Okay.
So it was I treated it like a part-time job, and that paid not my rent, but like a
good amount of your rent.
No,
right?
Yeah. That apartment, yeah, it paid my rent. Just barely.
Okay.
But now I live with my husband, and I only rent out 1 room, and I way prefer that. That's a lot less hectic.
Sure.
And then that way, like, some people would come into your home and be like, all the space is mine. Just make themselves at home, invite people over, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I would wake up and be like, hi, strangers, what's going on? And this way, where they're coming into my house, we're like, hi, this is our house, and you're there in that room away from us. And
Wow.
they don't really tend to venture into our space. Like, so our living room is still like kind of ours.
Yeah.
So I much prefer that power dynamic, and I really prefer doing Airbnb than having roommates.
Okay.
That's the other option, to have a roommate, and
that's yes.
I don't like it because
the roommate really wears on you year after year,
and it's
the same bullshit every single day.
And honestly, it really comes down to sharing the space. I do not want another person living here full time with all of their shit, all of their weird stuff. At least with Airbnb, like, people come in with a suitcase, and like, sometimes French people do this all the time. They cook. They sit there and cook in our kitchen, and we had to be like, kitchen access upon request.
Oh, okay.
Because you can make a bunch of
Yeah,
rules.
right.
And one of them is going to be no more teenagers.
Sure. The second you were telling me a couple times ago about the two teenagers that you tell the story. You know where I'm going with this.
Well,
that's hilarious.
These I didn't realize they were teenagers at first because we never saw them, because they just kind of check in, go in.
Sure.
And they didn't leave their room for 4 days. It was like over the weekend. I like saw them go get like breakfast and like come back. And we're like, who goes to New York and doesn't fucking leave the room at all? And it turns out he looked at their profile. They live in New York and they're 18. And we were like, why would... Oh, yeah. And the sheets were disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
Disgusting. And I'm like there was
extra cleaning fee disgusting. Like how did
we it went through like mattress to like
oh
pad.
no
it didn't get
no.
on the mat. We could clean it. We cleaned it off, but it was like definitely like blood. Like it was I think it was a virginity situation.
Okay, well, props to them for making it romantic and special, I guess. Like,
couldn't afford a hotel.
It's better than just like the attic of one of their parents' houses.
I think that would have been fine. I think
fine, sure, but
to be
not,
like how about a struggling artist's home? Yeah, that was very, very strange. These people, the one that opened the window and the air conditioner fell out.
Okay.
I'm going to just charge them for the AC. And it's $250.
I was going to say, ACs could be pretty expensive.
And so. I mean, yeah.
No, you don't charge them for what that was worth. You charge them for what the replacement is. So you get a $400 one. Charge them for that. How are they going to know? They're not going to ask for the receipt. You're like, no, I needed this one to replace it.
That's a good idea. Cut this out so I can't.
Right.
I can't.
You go to
I'm
court
not
someday.
liable. Airbnb is like watching everything I've ever done to be like.
I mean, you didn't say it. I said it.
I'll find a hole in your claim.
This is a comedy podcast. This is all jokes. What's the worst experience with Airbnb?
Okay. There was a guy. He was like, he had checked in. Everything is fine. I went out of town. But I had like a friend like on call, like in case anything went wrong. But like whatever, it's an apartment. Like, people know how to behave. And he and so I was out of town. I was in LA, and he calls me and he's like, I can't get in. The key doesn't work. And I'm like, look, sometimes the lock's like a little bit, I gotta jiggle it, right?
It's an old apartment. It's an old,
right. And he was like, no, the key, it doesn't work. I have been here for like an hour. It doesn't work. And I was like, okay. And he's like, maybe someone changed the locks. And I'm like, who would change the locks? And he goes, well, there were people in this apartment earlier today. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, they said they were painting. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And so I freaked out, being like, okay, someone broke into my apartment, changed the lock, or jammed it. Wouldn't be hard to do.
Right.
And then I started being like, how would someone do this? But I had been doing Airbnb at a couple years at this point, and I would just give someone keys, and it's so easy for them to make a copy of that key.
Oh yeah.
To give it to somebody and go, I know someone who lives here. This is how you get in.
Yep.
Whatever. Like, it would be so easy to fucking do that.
That's why so many people have the like electronic like code thing.
So smart.
So you can change the code after
so
they
fucking
leave.
Smart. Yeah. So I was like, and so I started calling like the police and stuff from LA, and they're like, can't do, and I got transferred, and I'm like freaking out, and I'm in a car full of comedians.
Oh no.
It was at a comedy festival, and they're like, sorry, that sucks. I'm like, oh my God, someone broke in. I don't know. Someone broke in. And so and then I'm like, can the police go over there? Whatever, maybe the guy call a locksmith, trying to figure out what to do. And then the guy calls me again, and he goes, okay, sorry, I'm in the apartment. The key works. He was drunk. He was drunk.
No.
And I spent hours panic attacking. in front of people, and then they were like, yeah, I thought it was pretty far-fetched that someone would broke into your apartment. I'm like, okay, well, it's not like it's never fucking happened before.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's not, it doesn't take a fucking mastermind heist person to be like, hey, let's do a Airbnb. Okay, I'm not giving anyone ideas, but
this isn't fucking Pleasantville over here. Like, it's fucking
it would be
Bushwick.
so
this could happen.
easy to break in to someone's house that you've been at before.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he was drunk, and I left him the worst review ever.
You didn't. Oh, you couldn't really charge him for anything because it didn't cost anything.
No, just like charge him for emotional damages.
Yeah, I guess years of therapy afterwards.
Oh yeah. So anytime someone's like, the key doesn't work, I'm like, it does. It does.
Yep. Have you seen the movie Barbarian?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think this is a good launching off point.
Yes.
I'm kind of surprised that nobody else had tried the Airbnb mix-up sort of framing for a horror movie before. Like with how often people are staying in other people's houses, when it happened, I was like, oh, of course.
Yeah, this is something that has for sure happened to people.
Yeah.
There are real Airbnb horror stories. So yeah, I'm surprised it's not more of a genre.
Yeah. So for people that haven't seen it, this movie, the premise is that two people book the same Airbnb on the same night.
Which happens because there's faceless corporations or whatever behind renting out Airbnbs. So mix-up happens constantly.
Mix-up happened, and it like builds like those two are gonna like one of them is evil, and then there's just how much do we give away? I don't want to because like.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm gonna say there is a lot of naked old lady, and that is
but her tits rock.
And boy, do you get a
good look.
You sure do.
You get a few.
Yeah, I think it's just really important to have like older female representation on film, especially in a sexualized way.
Yeah, sexualized. She's nurturing. She's caring. There's honestly the perfect female figure.
Yeah, she's honestly the perfect mom. Watch Barbarian.
I would be so lucky. Please don't watch Barbarian. No, it's very good. I love movie.
It's a really good movie, and it's honestly like one of those like classic like monster movies, honestly.
Yeah. It kind of is.
And the monster are the old saggy tits.
Kind of everyone's a monster in that movie in their own special way.
Oh, analysis.
Just a little bit of analysis. I mean, like who's not besides the main girl that you follow from the beginning?
Yeah, I'm like, she's not a monster.
She's not. But then everyone, and then the homeless guy is cool.
No, but the guy in the beginning's not, too. You just think he might be.
Good point. Yeah, I maybe overanalyzed.
Embarrassing.
You tell me. You're the expert on horror movies.
Yes, that's true. No, I actually took a horror film class when I was studying women, gender, and sexuality studies.
Ooh.
And so, but that was.
Do you think Barbarian's going to be taught in that class?
100%. I can see the essay. No, that was actually my very favorite class in college. It was actually like a 301, so it was like very academic, and it was specifically for the sexuality studies course.
Sure.
So we like would analyze horror films and write like 4 or 5 page essays and like one big one at the end. Like deconstructing it from like whatever perspective, Freudian from a socialist perspective, from an anarchist perspective, whatever.
I actually did that.
It's my favorite shit ever.
College. Well, my favorite class in college was I took a class on the moral and ethics of The Walking Dead. So we watched the first season of The Walking Dead, and we had to write like a 1 or 2 page paper every week about like the moral and ethical dilemmas, and it was essentially the exact same thing where it's like, how do you choose between the individual and the group, and like you would pick out certain things. It was a stupid summer class, but it was a lot of fun.
I do think it's insane that The Walking Dead specifically is taught.
Yeah.
I feel like horror movies is at least more of like, we went through the history. We see like the whole thing. We studied it, and they're just like, here's one series that we really like. That feels like a podcast.
Yeah. I mean,
that you get college credit for.
I only paid $2,000 to take it, so that's how much a college credit is, right?
That's
it's
a
a
lot.
3-credit summer class. I was like, you know what? I got
You
electives.
gotta get those electives somehow.
Let's take the Walking Dead class. Why not?
Gotcha.
And it was great. But anyway, keep going. I know how much
About what?
the class. Like, what did you watch?
Oh, the class. So I'll tell you what I wrote
class?
papers on. I watched like so many horror films. I was so into it. We had to watch like 3 films a week, and I was like, okay.
That's a lot of work.
It was
Like a lot of
it
watching.
is the hardest I've ever worked in class, and like I was obsessed. So I wrote a paper on Carrie.
Okay.
Okay, what was that called? My paper, whatever, something. And then I wrote one on hard candy. I called it Little Red Victimhood.
I don't know hard candy. Sorry, the class didn't prepare you for men to not know what you're talking about.
Well, to be fair, that is it's a very anti-man one.
Is it?
Not like men in general, but like it's basically a 2-person film.
Okay.
And with like one, like Sandra Oh like shows up for like a second.
Sure.
Oh, it's so good. So it's Elliot Page.
Sure.
When he was very young, about like 13. This was like a little around the Juno time.
Okay.
Where he was at least playing a very young, like a preteen girl. That was his character. And so she meets the character meets someone online, and it's an older guy, and they meet up for coffee, and it's Patrick Wilson.
Okay.
Horror fame, like.
I've heard the name.
He was in Insidious. He's the one in and in The Conjuring. He's the lead in all of those.
Yep.
It's okay.
I can picture the face. This is
and also he's a very famous actor. He was on Broadway. He was in Phantom of the Opera. Anyway, I'm a huge Patrick Wilson fan, and I love his wife. Okay. So he's a man in his 30s, and it's very clear that it's inappropriate flirting, and it's very uncomfortable. And then he takes the character back to his house, and the games begin. And it's basically what happens at that house. And it is really uncomfortable. It's actually not like super graphic.
I was going to say, is it like Saw type games, or is it more like social horror?
It's definitely like there's torture. Like there's definitely torture.
Okay.
But it's just, and the performances are so fucking good. And yeah, it's mostly psychological, but there is definitely like violence, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, so I wrote a thing on that. I really don't want to tell you more because I really want you to watch it.
I'll watch it.
You should watch it.
Yeah.
It's one of those good. What I love about horror, there's a lot of low budget opportunities.
Yes.
I love when there's just like a dynamic between like 2 people, and like how's it going to change? And like slowly something creeps in, and then you're leading to a climax. You don't know what it is.
Sure.
Like that's. I love it.
Okay.
That's what I like about horror.
Yeah.
But you know, I also like the fucking Ari Aster, like big, scary.
Okay. Yeah.
Like.
I was going to ask your
shit.
opinion on Hereditary. Which
Hereditary was
the most divisive. I know people that hate it. I know people that hate it, and I know people that are like, you haven't watched it, you have to. This is the most. I haven't seen it. I've seen Midsommar and I've seen Mother, but I've not seen Hereditary.
Well, Mother's not Ari Aster, right?
I thought that was Ari Aster.
Beau is Afraid.
Yes.
Now
I meant to watch
one,
that.
I fucking hated.
You hated it?
Well,
I heard it was great.
Here's the thing. I would have loved it if it was an hour and a half. It was
It's
3
3
hours, and
yeah.
I was like, it does not need to be 3 hours.
No.
And it was very confusing. But here's the thing. So I watched it. Me and my husband were like, fuck, what the fuck? Are you fucking kidding me? But I can't stop thinking about it.
Sure.
And I think for that reason that it's like, a lot of parts are very vivid and stuff. I'm like,
Okay.
I think the director did what he wanted to do with it. So in that way, I'm like, I do really appreciate that film.
Okay.
And maybe it will have rewatch value, but like at the time, I'm just like, oh, another scene. What the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah.
What? There's like a lot of that, and you.
That sounds like Ari Aster.
Yeah, but it was much more abstract. It was extremely abstract.
Sure. Midsummer was pretty straightforward.
And I think Hereditary was too.
Okay.
I would say you understood, like, yes, there was a lot of like kind of mysteries and clues in there, but it all made sense. The ideology all like checked out. The narrative made sense.
Sure.
Like the order of events you could follow. Like, you know what I mean? Being like, what was real and what wasn't, you could more or less tell.
Yeah.
But I think Hereditary was maybe one of the most perfect horror films I've ever seen.
Okay. Let me hear it. I haven't seen it. Give me the pitch for Hereditary, because Carmen fucking hates that movie.
Well,
and so
it's extremely
she's like,
disturbing.
I will not watch it.
It's so
with
disturbing.
you. I'm like, I have to watch it eventually.
It's extremely disturbing. It's extremely violent, and it's very like drab and hopeless. Like it's not.
Yes, that is my type of movie.
Yeah, it's because it deals with a lot of like grief.
Okay.
Like the opening scene for Midsummer and how it was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like there's a scene, there's a version like of that where you're like, oh fuck, this movie's gonna be fucked. You know what I mean? Like this is and the acting from Toni Collette, like that to me, like all the scary horror parts were terrifying, but like the acting, the drama, the family dynamics, and how much pain they were in is like the best part of the film.
Okay.
And how like Toni Collette just like fucking sells it. There's a part where something bad happens and you see off screen like just the son's face as he's listening to his mother's screams in the background.
Sure.
And you don't see what happened, but you know what happened.
No.
That is like literally like, I cannot watch the scene without like bawling my eyes out. Ugh. And like, oh my God, like it's like, and then that's why I like his movies, because he's so good at the personal dynamics and whatever horror element is also happening. It's the heart of it is, the characters and how people treat people. And I really like the way he writes women, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah. And men to be just shitty.
Sure.
Like always, there's a lot of like men letting women down, and as a theme.
You think he's projecting from his own life? He feels like he lets the people around him down?
Well, if he's aware of it, then
It's,
Yeah. Oh my God. Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. I am kind of interested in like the growth of horror movies, because I feel like horror movies now really lean into the anticipation and the suspense, where like you look at the stuff from the early 2000s, like Saw, Hostel, like they were all like, we're going to horrify you by showing you exactly what this horrible thing is, where like Hereditary, Midsummer had some parts that were really hard to watch, but they were very quick. It was very like it was all about.
I would say that's similar to Hereditary.
Yeah,
where like
even Barbarian was kind of like there was a little bit, there was a couple scenes, but
there are movies that are just pure gore, and that is their selling point, and that did become really popular in the 2000s, where you could make very, very realistic gore. I think that became very popular in like the 70s with the slasher movies.
Sure.
In the 80s. Like just watching people getting picked off and dying in horrible ways became like a mwah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, the
Halloween,
classics.
Even like Final Destination, stuff like that. that's very popular where you're like, who's going to win? We know they're all going to get picked out.
Yep.
And then there's a lot of haunted house kind of things where it follows that thing. A great kind of spin on that was Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
I watched it.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was so funny and
It was great.
I love horror comedies too, where if it's done well, if it's stupid, it's like really stupid.
Yeah. The Bodies, Bodies, Bodies was, for the audience, that was Pete Davidson.
Right.
And who's the other star in that one?
Rachel Sennett.
Yeah. Not the name I was thinking of.
She's a friend of mine. She's really nice. Yeah.
Nice.
And Pete Davidson owes me $1,200.
Oh, great. Did he stay in your Airbnb?
No. No, he couldn't afford it.
Oh, no. Yeah, that movie was great because it was like, it kind of had like a playfulness to it, which I don't feel like we see. I haven't seen from a horror movie in a while, where it's like, it's kind of funny. The last one I would
say it's very funny. The last one, we say like a Joss Whedon film has a lot of those kind of things.
Well, so there's
Sam
like
Raimi used to.
So yes, I do love Sam Raimi. Drag Me to Hell was great. I love The Evil Dead. The last one, you get like Tucker and Dale versus Evil, but that's a comedy. That's a horror comedy as opposed to a comedy horror. Yeah. The last one that I was gonna say was Cabin in the Woods.
Right, Joss Whedon.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
That was probably one of the best examples of a truly scary, truly funny horror comedy.
I was laughing out. It's one of my top 5 favorite movies. And it's got every aspect of horror in it. It's got gore. It's got like the chase scene. It's got like weird sci-fi psychological shit to it. Like it's got everything. And I was like, this is beautiful. This is where I put the bar for horror movies.
Yeah,
is that movie.
that's truly great. I liked how it kind of justified the whole horror formula in general with like the ending, and they were like, we're doing this to appease the gods. They have this for you, and like the gods are us, we are the consumers of this horror. I love the indictment of we're the ones watching. And I think that this isn't like a horror movie, but I would consider like it so scary and horrific is like something like Squid Games.
Sure. Yeah.
Where like we're the evil one, and the enjoyment we get out of watching people suffer. And I love like commentary on that, criticism of that within an art form that's absolutely catering to it.
Yep.
And one thing I will say, I'm so happy because in the 2000s we weren't getting great horror movies. I would say like The Ring would probably be like really up there as far as a really just a good movie you'd want to watch that happens to be terrifying. And now with like Jordan Peele and Ari Aster, we're getting these like very prestige level studio films that are amazing.
They're saying something.
And very scary. And now we have A-list actors who are like, I need to do a horror film. Where before it was really...
It's just like, Hilary Duff is trying to come back. Guess she's in this horror
Paris
movie.
Hilton, House of Wax. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. It's kind of become a... It's not the joke that it used to be.
It doesn't have to be...
they're doing horror movies? Like, this is kind of gross. Like, what happened to their career? And now it's like, you do a Jordan Peele film and you're like, you're a star. Because you know it's going to be huge.
Horror is like... It is now like... The films, I think, are more like legitimate. And I think in the past, a lot of horror fans were horror fans because of like the cultiness of it, because of like the B and C and D list movies.
That's like Evil Dead, Army of Darkness.
Even more low budget than that. Like it can like really like Blair Witch Project.
Like $1,500 in the woods of Michigan for the first Evil Dead movie.
Paranormal Activity was $500.
Yeah. I was going to ask you what you think of that movie.
Oh, I love that movie so fucking much. I think that was one of my favorite things. That, like the Blair Witch Project.
Okay.
Now, I have read something. I love the Blair Witch Project. I think it was so brilliant. And the way they did it was so fucked. And unethical. Not like I like the marketing of how they like this actor's missing, and they were like the Blair, and they planted Blair Witch legend so that people would think it's like a real thing, a real legend, instead of something that they made up. And then they told the actors it was a real legend. So the actors really thought. So what was to me?
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's cool. But to me, where they went too far is basically the actors were actually filming themselves.
Yeah.
The crew was hidden around the woods somewhere, and the actors were legitimately lost at several points. Did not know where they are. And got scared, and they kind of ran out of food towards the end. So the actors are living off like a couple of bars, granola bars and shit, in the woods, sleeping in the woods. Right now, like they made a great film.
Yeah.
They got insanely good performances out of it. But I do not believing in starving your actors.
No.
As a, like to
Is
me,
that in the new strike?
I would pull
language?
so much diva shit. So like they're non-union, fuck it. But like that girl doesn't do acting anymore. Like,
oh really?
No, she's in the marijuana business. Good for you.
Oh great. T.J. Miller was totally fine after that.
After what?
He was in Blair Witch.
T.J. Miller?
Yeah.
Are you talking about Cloverfield?
I am. Sorry.
I'm like, there's no fucking way T.J.
As
Miller.
soon as I said it, I was like, fuck, that was Cloverfield. Damn it.
Yeah.
Damn it. Which, same kind of movie. But
then he got fucked after the rape allegations.
Yeah. That was the joke. I was like, that movie didn't fuck him up at all. He's a completely normal person now.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, okay, fine. Don't starve your actors. I get it.
I mean, I'm not saying I've never done
art,
it.
Anything for art.
Who hasn't locked their actor in a room and said, "Not until you have the perfect take, I won't feed you."
I've kept you here for 4 days just for this podcast,
and I've lost so much weight. Thank
so
you.
Much weight. You're welcome. So, how do you define? Like, because you said Squid Game, you wouldn't consider it a horror movie, but it had some gore.
I would consider it a horror series.
Okay,
but I think genre-wise, it would probably. I would very much consider it a horror thriller series.
So that was going to be my question. What do you consider the line between a
thriller
and a horror? Because a movie like Prisoners. Did you watch that one?
Did I watch it?
I love it. Again, one of my favorite movies.
I think that was and that film was supposed to be 3 hours. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it was brutal. It was hard to watch, but it's categorized as a thriller, and you're sitting there and you're like edge of your seat the entire time. It's crazy suspenseful because there's really brutal scenes with like a lot of blood.
But you're not.
Where is the line?
I would probably put that. I would not, if I saw that in a horror movie category, I wouldn't be like, this doesn't belong. Because anything for me, when there's child murder or child endangerment, I would put that in a horror category like Stephen King. That's his favorite thing, child murder. I wish I loved anything as much as he loves child murder. But as far as that goes, I think it's a lot to do with tone and directing. There were no jump scares. There were no horror movies are suspenseful where you're like, what's going to happen? Something's going to jump out. Not all horror movies, but that's certainly an element. And that movie, it scared you because it was so disturbing. I would say, I don't know, actually, some of the performances from the actors, I'd be like, yeah, that was pretty chilling. I would consider that a scary movie. But like it's not a typical horror scream genre.
So then what about Us? Like you brought up Jordan Peele. That movie, it really didn't have, it had one jump scare in the like little maze thing at the end, but for the most part it was just kind of
it had several jump scares, but it wasn't made off of jump scares. There were a couple like strings.
Sure.
Even in the first scene when she reaches out and grabs her.
That's true. There's that. But then most of it was a social commentary that was just intense the whole time.
Most horror movies are social commentaries. Here's a lot of reasons why that was a horror movie. One, it was very much marketed as a horror movie.
Sure.
Two, there were brutal murders on screen and people like running away from the killer. I think that is a big horror theme. Like, oh, there's someone after me. Gotta go. This abstract evil thing I don't understand is after me.
As opposed to Hugh Jackman in Prisoners running towards the killer, not away from.
Yeah. Like we are watching. I would say, and also just like the realism. Also, like there was so much more fantastical elements in Us where they're like, oh, it's a whole society of people who are magically tethered to us. So anything supernatural that is scary, I would put in horror. Now, one of my favorite things about watching a horror movie is going, okay, is this going to be a supernatural entity or are they crazy?
Yeah.
Or is it like a serial killer, like a slasher horror movie?
Sure.
There's nothing supernatural about it. But it's scary, like in Pearl. And have you seen those movies?
No.
X. Great movie, great slasher. And I don't even really love slashers that much.
Okay.
I honestly find them, especially older ones, like so insanely misogynistic. It's like...
That's why I like them.
Yeah, you're like, it reminds me of the good old days when you can just murder a girl for having sex.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that. The sluts die, the virgins live, whatever. One of my least favorite things, and I know that like horror movie deaths are supposed to be like over the top, crazy, whatever.
Yeah.
But this movie that I never finished because I fucking hate it.
This X?
All the boys love Mandy Lane or something.
Okay. I've never even heard of it.
Amber Heard is the lead character, and I do like her, so fuck off. But it's basically how all the boys were obsessed with her, and they want to sleep with her, and I don't know, a kid died trying to impress her. That's like the opening. Who cares?
That's her fault, of course.
But then, you know, she's hanging out with a bunch of friends, and all the other girls are sluts who are jealous of her, and they're horrible. And, you know, this girl gives a guy a blowjob in a barn, and then she's like, my turn. He's like, no way. And she's like, and then the murderer makes her lie on the ground, and he sticks a shotgun into her throat until she dies.
Jesus Christ.
To punish her for giving a blowjob.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, fuck this movie, fuck this shit. I don't give a fuck. I like just.
That is some old timey Puritan shit.
Well, it's like, if that happened and it was like, okay, this guy is an evil, fucked up guy, like in Seven. You know, like that's a guy who's punishing people for their perceived wrongs, and he's obviously like not right. But you know, those girls were portrayed as like simple-minded sluts who don't matter.
Yeah.
They were portrayed that way, so we were kind of supposed to like, ugh, and I just found the tone, the framing of it, I hated more than like the actual
Not Seven,
violence.
This other movie.
Yeah, sorry, this other movie. Yeah, where like Seven, everything, you know, made sense, was justified. And maybe if I watch the end of the movie that she's going to give a big speech about how women should be treated right, Mandy Lane, but I doubt it. So there's I can stomach violence in certain contexts.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Seven's a good example of the question again. Do you put that as a thriller or a horror?
I would put that as both. It's like a thriller because they're solving a murder, blah, blah, blah. But
then you get, so like David Fincher's always got the very suspenseful, all of his stuff is thriller. He's one of my favorite directors.
Yeah.
What is the movie that he did with the Golden State, not the Golden State Killer, oh god damn it, with the serial killer who's like giving clues to the newspaper? Zodiac.
Yeah.
Horror or thriller?
I would consider that a thriller because I didn't have any like jump scare horrific elements. You do have those in Seven. You are like,
it has been a minute since I've seen Seven.
There are like, who's gonna jump around the corner? I would say it's more of a thriller than a horror.
Okay.
But like, I see that in the horror aisle a lot, and I don't think about it. But yeah, it's definitely.
I think it's easy to say serial killer horror, make that comparison.
Well, no, because
Right?
Law and Order is not a horror movie. That I wouldn't consider those horror episodes.
Okay.
Like True Detective, I think probably was like more of a thriller, but some horrific things happened.
Yeah.
But I think
Couple of
also
jump scares.
with thrillers, a lot of the horrific things happen off screen and they just talk about them. Where in
Yeah.
horrors, you see the deaths, you see the rapes, you see the
Okay.
slaughtering.
Sure.
So I think I would say, as far as Seven, you don't really see a lot of the violence.
Sure.
You see the aftermath of the violence.
Yep.
So yeah. I don't know. It's a good question, but I think a lot of what makes a horror movie is if it is intended to be a horror movie.
Got it.
And then
Yeah.
marketed as such.
Yeah.
Like Mother, I would consider that a horror movie.
Really? I would put that into thriller.
No, man.
Because for 90% of
the
it,
shit that
it's the
happens-
most, but then at the end, you're like, Jesus fucking Christ.
The shit that happens at the end, I was like, okay, so yes, I have been watching a horror film. Like
Yeah.
Deliverance, I would consider a horror film.
Okay, I have not seen that.
Yo, okay, so you know what it's about, though.
Recap for me.
Okay, there's only the one scene. They get lost. They're guys going down the river in Mississippi or some, and they crash or they stop, and a bunch of rednecks brutally rape them.
Okay.
And that's where you get you got a pretty mile, squeal, piggy, and they
shit.
humiliate them.
Okay.
And it's really fucked up. But it's just like 70s horror. So have you seen like Last House on the Left?
Yes.
Okay, so the 70s one?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
where they like carve their name into a girl while she's screaming.
Yes.
So yes.
Yeah.
So to me, that's so horrific, but it happened in the 70s, so there's not a lot of music, there's no sound. It's just like, it's very like, oh my God. It feels real and it feels whatever. And oh my God, what movie was I just talking about?
Mother.
Mother.
Sorry,
Yes.
there's dog hair on the microphone because
Oh my God, I just keep tickling my chin. I'm like, what is that?
I watched a dog last week, which check out the other episode, the last week's episode, if you want to see what the dog is. And I vacuumed, and then I forgot to clean the couch of the dog hair. And then while you were like coming over, I just put the mic down on the couch. Totally forgot about it. So my bad.
You didn't read
We're
my
just-
writer.
No, that's true. You need to send
Yeah.
me the Airbnb rules
Yeah.
for cleaning fee for the dog hair. You're talking
Yeah.
about Mother.
Right. Yes. So like very like it's a scary thing that's happening, but it's not dressed up like a horror thing. Like you're just like watching a scene where someone's screaming and guy's like, shut up, bitch, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like bright outside and it's very real and it's just like, and that's a horror movie. Oh God, I actually love that movie.
Mother?
Last House on the Left.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Wow. I keep switching. Sorry.
We're good. Keep up, people. Keep up, me.
But Mother made me so fucking uncomfortable.
Oh, it was beautiful.
I was literally like walking, and then when the last part happened, I like screamed. I like hid under my bed. I honestly that thing happening, harming a baby like an infant. That is my. I can't. Nope. I'm out. Can't do it.
So you're
can't
the
do it,
anti
not
Stephen
fun.
King.
Can't.
You're the
He
exact
typically
opposite.
doesn't go for infants. They're typically prepubescent boys.
Okay.
And that is it's so funny to me that like it's so mainstream, like all these things.
Oh yeah, good point. Except for the sequel where they're all adults and Bill Hader has to kill the clown.
The
But,
fucking spider, whatever.
yeah.
So,
I thought it was fun.
Oh, I love it.
Not scary, but I was like, it is fun.
Oh no, I loved it. But so like in the first It, and I read part of the book. It's like 1,000 pages. I wanted just to get to the child orgy part. They do.
Sure,
They
I
do
know.
all have sex.
I know.
As children in the book. Yeah, so I gotta. I'm like, I gotta
Yeah.
wait till they
Check that out. It's just the new 50 Shades of Grey. Oh
because I
no,
can't
it's
find
Stephen
it.
King.
Because I'm sure they can't put it online because it's like fucking child porn or whatever. But
Yeah.
yes, it's weird to me how mainstream, killing children in movies is and how whatever. But if you remember in recent It remake, they feature like a hate crime at the beginning where a gay guy gets beaten, and murder, and then the clown gets him, and people were so angry about that, featuring that in a movie where children get eaten. That made me so angry that they were like, but I get it. We're like, this is too
the
real.
Liberal agenda ruining our movies.
No, people were mad, like gays.
Right.
Gays were mad because they featured something so horrible. And I remember someone was talking, being like, they shouldn't put that in a movie unless it's about hate crimes. And here's why I so disagree with that. Because first off, it was in the original book. And second off, there is a point to it. The point is that the town of Derry is the evil spirit. That is why it comes there. Maybe it influences the town. Maybe the town, whatever it is, there's something desperately wrong in that town where all of the kids featured in it are dealing with horrible problems on their own. Bullying, nobody doing anything, racism, homophobia. Right. All these things happen and people let them happen. And then that monster feeds off of it. Feeds off of their apathy. And so I thought it was a really good commentary on this whole what he was trying to say. And when people are like, oh, something happened I didn't like, you must have been endorsing the thing that I didn't like, is such a shallow reading of that. Now, what happened was people saw that and they got upset and it triggered them. And so they said, well, then that never should have happened. And it's like, no, you were upset about it. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
It hits too close to home. Okay, it's not the art, the media for you. You didn't appreciate it.
Right.
That doesn't mean it shouldn't exist or happen.
Fair.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm screaming.
Far be it from the general public to not understand nuance of something.
And I'll go even further. This one I'm going to get probably hate for, but like rape scenes, this is a huge issue. Like, you should never show a rape scene because it's too horrible, it's too awful. And I'm like, and I see why people would say that and why women, especially, I can't, like, a rape scene is like, wow, it's horrible, it's brutal.
Yeah.
And I agree that it shouldn't be exploitative. Like in Rob Zombie films, when women are just getting raped to get raped and just to have their tits bouncing while they're screaming. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't think.
Right.
I don't appreciate it. I would be happy if that did not happen. I wouldn't say it should not ever happen, because if everyone agrees to do a scene like that, fine. Who cares?
Yeah.
That's up to them. But being like, you should never show rape. I'm like, but you can show murder. You can show dismemberment. You can show horrific violence.
Yeah.
It's the ones where they're like, well, it hits too and I'm like, I think you need to admit, I don't want to see something because it's too real and it's too scary and it's too triggering for me. And it's okay to say that without saying that thing is wrong that I had to even watch it.
Right.
Now, one example I'm using is Game of Thrones.
Sure.
Where Sansa's rape, everyone got so fucking angry.
Yeah.
Everyone was so mad. Articles were written. This shouldn't have happened. And it made me, I disagreed with that because I thought that was the first rape scene of the whole series that actually took rape seriously.
Yeah.
And they didn't film it in a way that exploited the victim.
Yeah.
And so people are mad just that it happened. And I'm like, you realize this is a rape show. Like,
yeah.
And the rape scenes that made me mad in Game of Thrones are the ones that happen in the background while two evil men are talking to be like, look at how evil they are, while dead-eyed girls are just having, like, just jiggling everywhere while a man's like, ugh. Like that. To me, I'm like, oh, this is nothing to you. This is a game to you. This is exposition.
Right.
But, and people get mad. A lot of women do. A lot of feminists. Because I studied women's studies, so we talked about this a lot. They're mad when they're like, rape shouldn't be just a plot point. Rape shouldn't be a plot device. I'm like, why not? It happens in real life a lot, and it changes things. Things change after rape. Maybe someone gets in trouble. Maybe someone's definitely always traumatized. You know, there's so many things to happen. So I don't think rape should be banned from art. I think it should be portrayed.
It should be artful.
You should do an artful rape scene. No. But like if you're going to, I think there are ways to do it in a way that is respectful, but to go, I don't want to be triggering is like, well, then you can't make art at all.
Yeah.
Because someone will be triggered by something, and I'm not saying that as an excuse to be like, just be racist and homophobic.
Right.
But I think there's a huge difference between like the art condoning something and the art just featuring something. Sure. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. And it is, I love Game of Thrones. I read the books. As I've gotten older, I've come to realize that there is a big thing in the fantasy genre
of
from
Rape-a-palooza
fans where they're like, it's a lot of male authors that just write rape in there because they're like, oh, it happened historically, and so they put it in because they're like, oh, this is something. But to your point, when it's a plot point that is handled in a way where they're giving it the gravity of the actual moment as opposed to undermining it, that's where it's. I'm saying I agree with you.
Yeah.
But horror does kind of have that same thing. Quentin Tarantino's kind of gotten that same kind of rap with women, where it's like he's so brutal and pointlessly. The characters are kind of a little bit pointlessly misogynist sometimes.
Yes,
and I'm not saying he's not a very good director.
No,
sure.
I think I loved Tarantino's like movie. Some of his movies I really, really are like some of my favorite, like Kill Bill. Love that. And that's another one.
I was actually going to ask if that was horror.
I would not consider horror. I guess, yes.
It's very brutal.
I guess I would consider horror from like just the gore element, but the gore is so like silly to me that it's like whatever. But yes, I guess especially in like Kill Bill 1 is when she kills Oranishi.
Yeah.
So yes, that's a lot of blood squirting everywhere. But I wouldn't consider. It's not like a very dramatic horror. Like I would consider it kind of almost more of a fantasy.
It's comic booky. It's kind of cartoony.
And he did it, the first,
which is on purpose.
Yeah, the first Kill Bill was a lot of it based off Japanese cinema. Yep. The second one was based off a lot of Westerns. So there's I see a lot of what he's doing there. And those movies particularly, and I will say they have very strong female leads who are very capable of counteracting violence against them with equal or more violence.
Yeah.
So that's something I do notice how he writes that. He writes a lot of very evil characters who have a lot of bigotry about a lot of different issues.
Sure.
And I don't mind that. I think they're villains.
Right.
Now, whether did he just use it as an excuse to say the N-word a million times? I wouldn't be surprised.
We'll never know.
But I think I don't think he showed like the violence or whatever against women that he shows. I do believe there's enough women fighting that violence back.
Sure.
Which one of my feminist professors said. He goes, I feel like that movie just justified violence against women. But anyway, and I've been thinking about that a lot. To be like, oh, if women are equal partners in fighting, we can go ahead and hit them. Because it's just like hitting a dude.
Interesting. Well,
to show women realistically as like hand-to-hand combat capable of beating a man, things like that. You know what I mean?
I'm so mad that we have to go. I have a show in literally 10 minutes. It's around the corner, so we're good. I could talk about this for at least another
violence against
hour.
Women.
Yeah. No, just any more like horror movies, like how you write stuff, how you write characters, all that other. So maybe
we'll
next time, part 2, come back. We'll talk about like writing characters. How do you write characters for now? Or
and my favorite horror characters.
Yes. Where can people find you?
You can follow me, Sally Ann, at me, Sally Ann, MESALLYANN, on all platforms.
Easy to find.
Oh, and my podcast, Good Porn in America, porning, like pornography,
like good porning.
Like good porn in
Good
America.
porn. Yeah. I love it. Follow me at Corey T Comedy on all social media. And if you're in New York City, come to Ope, a comedy show every single week at Ferns. Sally Ann is doing it on August 3rd. So if you're in town, definitely come to that. If you missed that one and you want to see her on a show that you're coming to, shoot me a message on Instagram. We'll book her for that show.
And I will be doing my 3-minute bit about my favorite movie, Teeth.
Beautiful. Let's do it again.